let it dry. No, set. Set good one. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. It's a new week. And as you've seen from my thumbnail, we're going to make some bread. So, I got the puppies. They're goodies. And my thing keeps going down this morning. Not sure why. So, hopefully I've got it. Of course, I'm still getting used to the new stand. So, today I'm excited. And I'm falling downward. Okay. Maybe if I try something a little different there. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get it stabilized. So, I'm excited today. I get to use my... Yep, it's still going down. I'm just going to have to try and figure it out. Hopefully it'll stay steady. So I'm going to try and use my new starter today, the one I started 3 weeks ago today on a Monday. So I have now fed my starter for the day. Let me see if I can flip this over. Let me pull this out just a second. Let me try and flip this over. Whoops. I got you all over. Sorry about that. And now let me try putting that in that way. We'll see if that works. Sorry. I hope I didn't make you dizzy. Maybe we are ready to go now. So, the new starter that we started together 3 weeks ago today, I am going to go ahead and try and make my very first loaf of bread, the sourdough bread. And I'm not going to be doing the overnight fermenting of this loaf because it is the new starter and we just started it 3 weeks ago today. But I am going to be, let's get this. I'm going to be using this recipe, and this recipe is from Robin on the Farms. And this is an easy sourdough bread recipe. And this is the same day, no knead, no stretch or folds sourdough bread using unfed starter. So that's what I'm going to use today. And you can go to Robin on the Farm. And she has the printable recipe, which is what I've done today. And I'm going to be following this recipe. So, I started off with my new unfed starter right out of the refrigerator, and today is my 3rd week today on the new starter. So I took it out, I did not feed it, and I went ahead and followed all of these instructions, putting these ingredients in, and I put in 165 grams of sourdough starter, and it was unfed. So it needs to be unfed, hungry, or active. So you want it unfed. So I put in 165 grams of sourdough starter. I put 400 grams of room temperature water. I put in 650 grams of all-purpose flour, or you could have used bread dough as well, and 15 grams of salt. So I put all of that in my large bowl, and then I stirred it up really well, and then I needed to cover it. I needed to stir it for 3 to 5 minutes. Hi, good morning. For the last time. Good morning. How is everyone? Good morning, Granny. How are you doing? I'm doing good. How are you, Betty? We are making our first sourdough loaf today. Now, this is not the one that I'm going to be putting in the baskets and putting in the refrigerator for overnight. This one's the one that I'm using from Robin from the Farm. And it's a one-day sourdough recipe because we just started that new sourdough 3 weeks ago. So mine's still young. It's still a baby. So I'm going to see how it does with this one-day bread. So I put everything in my bowl, and I needed to whisk that up using my little bread whisper here for the sourdough bread. Hi, good morning if you're just coming in. Welcome to my kitchen. So I set my timer and I just stirred it really good with my whisk for 3 to 5 minutes. I think I went the full 5 minutes. Hi, good morning everyone if you're just coming in. So I did that, and then it says to cover it with a damp towel and allow it to set for 3 hours. So I'm going to show you number one, what my sourdough starter looks like now, because I used 165 grams before I fed it straight out of the refrigerator. And then after I've got my bread recipe together under this bowl and got everything mixed together, I refed my starter. So I wanted to wait for it to rise and double, which it has. And now I'm going to put my starter back in the refrigerator. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. And here is my starter on week 3. Hopefully you can see all of those beautiful, amazing bubbles in there. And it was down to here, to the rubber band. And now it has risen. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in the refrigerator. So today is my 3rd week today. So it's very active. It seems to be doing very good. It has that really nice, starting to get that really nice sourdough smell. It smells so good. It looks absolutely wonderful. I'm hoping you can see all those bubbles in there. I'll step back a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll put this on it while after I refeed it, and then let it set on the counter to let it double. And then before I put it in the refrigerator, I just put the wooden cap, and this was one of the containers that I was showing out of my starter kits for the sourdough starter kits. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in the refrigerator now because I'm done with this for the morning. I set this out about 6:30, and within 2 to 2.5 hours, 3 hours, somewhere in there, it will double its size, normally setting at room temperature 72 degrees. Okay, now I'm going to wash my hands, and then I'm going to show you. I'm so excited. This is our first try with that new starter. I call it my baby because it's only 3 weeks old today. Sourdough starter. So I'm going to show you under the towel exactly what we have. So I'm going to bring you a little bit closer here. Okay. Bring you down where you can see. And this is now got 23 minutes left of being the whole 3 hours under the damp towel. So I'm removing the damp towel. And I want you to see, just look at all that. It raised very nice. I'm hoping you can see around the bottom. Just look at all of that activity in there. This is a very, very nice starter. And I think I can get by with going ahead and putting that in the pan. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and start a different dough, because I'm going to be making some different breads today. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave this on until I get my bread machine going with my other bread. And as you can see, I've got my cast iron Dutch oven out. And I'm going to be using this to bake this loaf in today. So, right now, I'm going to be using my little bread maker because the loaf that you've seen on my thumbnail, I made that in my cast iron skillet. I'm going to move you over. And I made that using my bread maker just on the dough cycle. So I'm going to go ahead and get one of those started because I'm on my last loaf of bread. So I'm going to make me just a little bit of room here. And again, the sourdough that we're making today is from Robin on the Farm. And this is Robin on the Farm's easy sourdough bread recipe. And this is the same day, no knead, no stretch, or fold sourdough bread using unfed starter. And you can go to her website. Again, credit goes to her website. And you can print the printable recipe. So we're going to attempt this today. I'm not probably going to get this baked because I'm still, I'm in the process. But we're going to go through some of the different breads and how I make them. So this is going to be the first try with the new sourdough starter. My little young sourdough starter, 3 weeks old. So I'm going to lay that off to the side. And the only thing I'm going to be using when it's time is the big Dutch oven. And I'll be using some parchment paper. And I'll be placing my dough on the parchment paper and then setting it down into the Dutch oven. So I don't think it's going to be ready in time for me to get that started. So I'll get you as far as I can today, and then we'll move on to that tomorrow. So I'm just going to move you over here and move you down. And I'm going to go ahead and get like the loaf on my thumbnail. That's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to get some started over here in my bread machine. I'm hoping you're going to be able to see that. And of course, I'm using that recipe that we had discussed before whenever I was making this bread. So, and this is I think it's on the one where I made the homemade pan pizza. And it's the recipe that I use for sandwich bread, for dinner rolls, for pizza crust, for cinnamon rolls. It's a multi-purpose dough. So I'm going to go ahead and get this dough ready in my bread machine. And I'm going to set it on the dough starting. So let me go ahead and get started with that. I need 1 cup of hot water. Now I just put my 1 cup of water in the microwave for 1 minute. Or no, 30 seconds. 1 minute is too hot. 30 seconds. Oh, I'm excited. I'll get to try out this new dough. It's going to be amazing. I'm really excited about it. Hopefully that's not too much light coming down there on me. So, I got my little bread pan ready. It has the paddle in. And this is the Cuisinart bread maker that we'll be using. And I'll take you over there whenever I go to put it in. Okay, that was 1 cup of water in the microwave for 30 seconds. And then I need 3 tablespoons of melted butter or oil. And I'm going to go ahead and use vegetable oil because that's what I did the last time. So I'm just going to stick with the same thing. And we'll see if you're making dough, of course, it may change according to your weather outside, and it is snowing here in Ohio. So there is 1, and this is just vegetable oil, 2. You can use melted butter or any oil of your choice. 3 tablespoons of oil. And I'm just going to leave that out because I'm going to make a second batch once this is done today. And then I need 3 tablespoons, and you can use, 2 tablespoons of either sugar or honey. I'm going to use sugar, but you can use 2 tablespoons of sugar or honey. And I'm just using regular granulated sugar. And I need 2 tablespoons. This is such an easy recipe. Nothing to it. Now I need 3, it calls for 3 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour. I start off with 3 cups, and then I check and see if I think it's going to need the half. Again, it depends on your temperature outside and your weather conditions. So I'll start off with 3 cups. And I'm not going to pack this. I may have to get my other bucket out, so we'll see. So I'm just 1. Yeah, I'm going to have to get my other bucket out. 2. And that looks like about a half in there, so I'm just going to leave that and open my next bucket. So let me just set that off to the side. And of course it is snowy here this morning, so. And I'm going to go ahead and get my 3rd cup. So there's 3 cups, and I'm going to wait on that 1/2 cup. I'm going to start it in my machine and then see what the weather's like. Good morning. Welcome to my kitchen if you're just coming in. So let me move that out of the way. And then I need 1 teaspoon of salt. And I'm using just granulated table salt. And then I need 2 teaspoons of yeast. And I'm going to move that salt over to the side. And I'm just going to make a little hole right there. Just a little indentation. And I'm going to use my 1/2 teaspoon. And I need 2 teaspoons. So I'm going to put 4, almost put salt. 4 teaspoons, 1/2 teaspoons, because it's 2 teaspoons of yeast, and you can use any kind of yeast as long as it's a active yeast. And it's calling for 2 teaspoons, and I'm using a 1/2 teaspoon. So there's 1/2. There's 1 teaspoon, 1 1/2, and 2. And that's all there is to it. So now I'll bring you over here and we'll get this set up into the bread machine. get you down where you can see. And I'm just going to put my pan in and lock it. I'm going to plug in my bread machine. And then my bread machine is a Cuisinart. And I'm looking for just the dough setting. And mine would be number 8. So on my program, I'm going to be looking for this number. So that's number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it should say 8. And then it should say 1 hour and 30 minutes. Now I'm just going to let this start to knead. And if it looks a little bit dry, I'll add just a little bit more water. If it looks a little wet, I'll add just a little bit more flour. That's why I started off with the 3 cups. So let me let that knead for just a minute. Okay, now I'm going to look at it. And I'm not wanting it to be sticking to the insides. Let's see if I can get you a little bit closer there. It looks like it's coming off pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and just... If I see anything on the side there, I'm going to go ahead and move that down. And again, it's according to your temperature. Some days it'll be a little more moist. Some days it'll be a little more dry. It's looking like it wants to stick just a tiny bit there on the bottom. So I'm going to add just a wee bit of flour, not much. That looks pretty good there. It's going to be a sticky dough, but you don't want it to be sticking to the sides and the bottom. And just a tad bit more. Try and get you a little bit closer there. Let's see. That looks really good. It's not sticking to the sides and it's not sticking to the bottom. So I'm just going to let that knead. And it will be ready in an hour and a half. So that's pretty simple and pretty easy. Good morning. Welcome into the kitchen if you're just coming in. Now I'm just going to let that knead. That looks very good. Now that'll take an hour and a half. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start on the sourdough that I have covered over here in this bowl. And Just move this stuff here out of my way. I'm just going to go ahead and put that back. Give myself a little more room. It's snowing here in Ohio. What's your weather like? Now this sourdough that I'm making is, again, credit goes to Robin's Farm. And because this is a very young, very new sourdough starter, I know that it's not ready to completely rise, or I don't know, it may be, but I'm not sure if it's ready yet to completely rise the overnight in the refrigerator. So I went online on YouTube and I found Robin on the Farm's recipe, so credit to Robin on the Farm. And this is her same day, no knead, no stretch or fold sourdough bread using unfed starter. So I just took my starter, went out of the refrigerator, and today is exactly 3 weeks. So that's how old my starter is. And I took out 165 grams of my sourdough starter, put it in this bowl, 400 grams room temperature water, 650 grams of all-purpose flour, or you can use bread flour. I used all-purpose, and 15 grams of salt. And then I took my Swiss dough and I paddle and I kneaded it for 5 minutes. And at that point it says you should have a sticky dough, which I did. And then it said to cover with a moist towel, with a damp towel, for 3 hours. And I'm down to 5 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and move to the next step. And I'm excited. This is the first thing I'm making with the new sourdough starter. And today it is 3 weeks old today. So I'm going to move you over here, because I have a little bit more room over here. And I'm going to move you down. And I'm going to clear me out just a little bit more space. And I'm going to move to the next step of this recipe. And this was the recipe for the bread dough that I have right now in the bread machine. And I just call it my all-purpose bread dough. I use it for bread rolls, for dinner rolls. I use it for cinnamon rolls. It's a pizza dough. It's an all-purpose dough. I absolutely love it. And it's 1 cup of warm water. I heat it in the microwave for 30 seconds. 3 tablespoons of melted butter or oil. I used vegetable oil this morning. 2 tablespoons of sugar or honey. I used 2 tablespoons of sugar. And it calls for 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I always start off with 3 cups because of the humidity. Some days that your dough may be a little more dry. Some days it may be a little more moist. So, you know, according to your humidity. So I just started off with 3 cups. And then I added just a little bit more, because it was just a little bit sticky, not bad. 1 teaspoon of salt and 2 teaspoons of yeast, any kind. Then I put it in my dough machine, my bread making machine, and I put it in on the dough setting. And I'm just going to let it go through the dough setting, and it'll go through rise 1, rise 2, and rise 3. And that is the loaf that I have on my thumbnail today in the cast iron bread pan. The loaf that you're seeing in this pan was the loaf that I baked the last time I made it in the bread machine, and I allowed it to go through its rises. And then once it goes through its rises and the bread machine ends, I just unplug it. I take the dough out. I make sure that my pan is well greased, and especially with cast iron, I over grease it. I just form my loaf into my dough into a loaf. I just put it out onto the counter and just take my fingers and make sure I have some of the air bubbles moved out. And then I just bring the top down, want the center of the top down. Then I pull out on the sides. So I'd be bringing the top down, pulling the sides out and folding them in, then rolling it toward me to form my loaf. Pinch my ends, make sure I'm folded in, and then just setting it in a greased cast iron bread pan, and then I just allow it to set there and rise. I don't cover it, and when it's up about this far above my bread pan, I'll just put it in a greased bread pan, and when it rises up about this far above, I'll put it in an oven at 350 degrees and bake. And that is the bread that you've seen on my thumbnail in the cast iron bread pan. Okay, so I'm down to 1 minute. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to move this sourdough over and get started with my next step following Robin's recipe from Robin on the Farm. So how is everyone this morning? How's your Monday going? It's snowing here in Ohio. So here is that dough. I'm so excited. This is the first thing I'm doing with the new sourdough. I'm going to give me a little more room here. I was filling up jars and doing all kinds of things. And I realized I was down to my last loaf of bread. So I'll move that over there a little bit. And I'm just going to lay a towel down here, set this bowl on. And now there's my timer. I'm very excited about this, very excited. Okay, now, I followed her recipe. I added in my 160 grams of the sourdough starter right out of the refrigerator, and I did not feed it. It needs to be hungry, unfed. I put that in the bowl. I put 400 grams of room temperature water. I put 650 grams of all-purpose flour and 15 grams of salt. And then I took my Swiss dough paddle and I mixed it really good for 5 minutes. It looked really dry, and she said on the video that I watched, and it looked really dry, not to add any water, and it would become like a more moist dough, and it did. Within 5 minutes, it was a very moist and very sticky dough. And then at that point, I needed to cover it, which I did, with a damp towel, and allow it to set for 3 hours. Now, this is a new starter. The starter's 3 weeks old, so I thought I would try this recipe. So here is 3 hours, and I'm really impressed. The dough looks really nice, and hopefully you can see, look at all those bubbles in there. Can you see all those bubbles? And this is a new starter. It's 3 weeks old. So I'm very impressed. So now, we've made it to this point. That was the first resting period. Okay, now, it says to cover it for 3 to 12 hours. I did mine for 3 hours, and she did hers on the video for 3 hours, so we're going to see how this turns out. Now, shape in the bowl by pulling the sides to the middle until you have a nice round ball of dough. So, that's our next step. So, I'm glad you're here with me. This is exciting. This is the first time I'm going to be able to use this new sourdough starter. It's 3 weeks old today, and how exciting. So I'm going to do just like Robin did. I have Maltese, and I'm just going to kind of, almost like a fold, and I'm just going to pull it to the center, and I'm just trying to make a nice ball. And she said it would be a sticky dough, and as you can see, it's a little sticky. So I'm just kind of pulling it up. Oh, I like this. I think this is going to be an absolutely wonderful starter. So I'm just trying to form a ball. Oh, it smells so good. You can smell the sourdough, but not overwhelming, because I did not use freshly ground flour. I did use all-purpose flour. So right now I'm just trying to form a nice round ball. And this is a lot of dough, so she said you can break this into 2 loaves if you would like smaller loaves. And it is a nice big ball of dough. I'm hoping you can see that. Just look at that. I'm so impressed with my new starter. So I'm just now trying to get this into a ball. But it's stretching nice. It's got a lot of flexibility to it. A lot of bounce. And it is sticky, but she said it would be. So I'm going to continue to go all the way around, and I'm just going to kind of pull it up and make a nice little ball, because that's what she did. Just letting you see how nice that's forming. And it's a nice bouncy dough. It's got plenty of air in it. I'm very impressed. So let me see if I can get this to a ball. And the more I'm working it, the more firm it's getting. I don't want to overwork it. Okay, I think that's going to be a nice little ball. I'm just going to keep pulling it to the side. Pull it toward me so I can make a ball. This is working very nice. Has a nice feel to it. I've not tried this recipe before. This is the first time I've tried it. Okay, I think that's going to be nice. It's forming a nice round ball. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the next step. Okay, once I have a nice round ball, it says I can divide this in 2 if I want smaller loaves, but I'm just going to use 1. Now I'm going to transfer this to a piece of parchment paper. So I'm going to move that to the side. I've got some parchment paper here. And then I'm just going to transfer this right onto the parchment paper. Made a really nice little ball. I'm going to see if I can't just round it up a little bit more. See if I can hold this edge down here you can see. There we go. And then I'm just going to take this and put it in a smaller bowl. And that's what Robin did on her video. So I have a smaller bowl here ready. And I'm just going to pick up this parchment paper. See if I can move that over just a little bit. I'll get a little more even. And then I'm going to set it down in my smaller bowl. That'll help, she said, to keep the shape. So I moved it now to a smaller bowl. And you can see it is a little bit sticky, but not real sticky. I mean, it was manageable. And then cover it again and let it set for an hour. So I need to cover this again. My hands cleaned up there a little bit. Now I'm going to cover it again with my damp towel. And it says, she says to let it set again for another hour. So then the next step will be to put it in and bake it. Good morning, Susan. Good morning, everyone. So now I have it covered again in the damp towel, so I'm going to move it back over where it was. And I'm going to set my timer for 1 hour. So now my next step, and again, this is the first time I've used this starter. It's the first time I've used this recipe. So after that sets for 1 hour, I'm going to have my cast iron Dutch oven ready. And I'm going to be putting my sourdough bread into here in a cool Dutch oven. She says not to heat the oven and not to heat the Dutch oven. So I'll be moving parchment paper and all the dough over, setting it down in my Dutch oven, and it's a cool Dutch oven. Put the lid on and put it in a cool oven. So that will be my next step in 1 hour. And then she says, place into the oven and set it 450 degrees and let it bake for 50 minutes. Then remove the lid from the Dutch oven and reduce the temperature to 425 and continue baking for 8 to 10 minutes. Remove the loaf from the Dutch oven to cool so the bottom does not burn. You can also place a cookie sheet under the Dutch oven to prevent the bottom from burning. So I am going to put mine on a cookie sheet just to make sure that the bottom does not burn. She said I usually slice into mine to enjoy it hot with dinner, but let it cool for best texture. If you have more self-control than I do, enjoy your delicious loaf of sourdough bread. Robin on the farm. Now that is the recipe that I'm using, and it is the same day, no knead, no stretch or folds sourdough bread using unfed starter. That is the video that I watched. She had the printable recipe, so we tried it today because this is a new starter. And this is the first recipe that I've done baking with this new starter. And then the noise you hear over there in the background, that is the bread machine, and I'm making the dough for the bread loaf that you've seen on my thumbnail. And that is my all-purpose dough. I use it for sandwich bread, pizza crust, dinner rolls. If you go back, I think I had a live stream, and it was making pan pizza, homemade pan pizza. And on that, I did do the dough, and I brought it right out of the bread machine, off of the dough cycle. I'm doing it on the dough cycle. I brought it out, took it out of the pan, placed it on my pizza pan, and made the homemade pizza. And then I don't think I have any of my bread. I do have a couple of the dinner rolls. I use that for my dinner rolls as well. And it makes absolutely beautiful dinner rolls, as you can see. And I use it for my sandwich loaves. I use the same dough for my husband's cinnamon raisin bread that I make him. I use it for cinnamon rolls. I use it for everything. It's my all-purpose dough. And I was down to my last of my homemade bread. So I thought I'd bring you along this morning, and I would go ahead and get that started. And it does take 1 hour and 30 minutes on the dough cycle in the Cuisinart. I absolutely love that little machine. So, that's all I have. I'm going to be making bread all day. And I was so excited to actually get started with the sourdough starter. And this is the 3rd week. This is week 3. And this is, we started it on a Monday. And then this is our 3rd Monday. And so on our 3rd Monday, I'm making my first loaf of bread, trying Robin on the Farm's recipe for the same day, sourdough, no knead, no stretch or folds sourdough bread using unfed starter, because it is a new starter. And I'll go ahead and show you that starter again if you just come in. Which now it has fallen. Before I put it in the refrigerator, I had taken it out of the refrigerator to start the sourdough recipe. I took the unfed starter out, followed her recipe, and then I fed it. And a little bit ago I was showing how it had risen twice its size, so I put it back in the refrigerator. But this is the starter, that new starter. And just look at all those bubbles. I'm hoping you can see all of those absolutely beautiful bubbles. It's a very active starter. It's a very healthy starter. And I'm absolutely impressed. I'm hoping you can see all them bubbles. And that's after I put it back in the refrigerator after it had been fed and it rose. I'll try. But it is an absolutely beautiful starter. So I'm going to put this back in the refrigerator. And I've been feeding mine because it's a new starter. I've been taking about 1/4 of a cup of my starter out, putting it in a discard container, and then adding back in 1/4 cup of fresh milled flour and Okay, no problem. It says I want to order glazed donut, hash browns, apple fritter, coffee, please. No problem. So I'm really impressed with this new starter, but I'll take out 1/4 cup and put it in a Discord container because I'm saving that, making pancakes with it and things like that. This is the first time I've tried to make the bread because it is the new one and it's a young starter. So I take the 1/4 cup out, put it in a Discord container. I added 1/4 of flour, cup of flour, 1/4 cup of water, stir it up really good. Um, when it's in the refrigerator, I have this wooden lid on, and when it's out on my counter, after I feed it, of course, I'm putting my little cloth cap on, and I'll set it on the counter and let it rise when it doubles. Then I'll just take the top off, put the cap on, and put it back in the refrigerator. So I have been feeding it daily because it is a new starter. And the sourdough bread that I'm making today does not set in your baskets overnight. It's not an overnight rise. And I thought that would be a good try. I'm going to see how it turns out. I'll come back on tomorrow after I get this loaf baked. And I'll let you see the loaf. And we'll see how my new starter did as far as the bread rising. So far, I'm very impressed. It's got a lot of air. It's got a lot of bounce. I'm really liking the way it's looking. So I'm hoping it won't be long until I can do the overnight sourdough. And it takes, of course, all day, get it ready, do the stretch and folds and wait so long and stretch and folds, getting my basket ready, putting it in the refrigerator overnight, and then getting it out and baking it the next day. With it being a new starter, I just didn't think it was quite ready for that. So we're going to try this and see how it turns out. And before you bake this one, even though it's not an overnight, it's still sourdough. So you'll have to go through and score your bread before you bake it. Of course, if you don't have the razor blade and the scorer, you can use use a sharp knife. Let me get these open. This is all brand new. I haven't opened any of this yet. This is one of the new kits that I was showing the other day. There we go. And each one of these razor blades in the new kit comes in its little envelope. And then it's also wrapped so you don't cut yourself. And then you just slide your, oops. And we get it to slide on there. I don't want to cut myself. You just slide your razor blade down. Trying to do this where I don't cut myself. And then you just put it on, and then you'll score your bread. You have to have at least one thick score, either one around or just do a cross. And then you can do some small scores on each of the four corners, but you still need to score your bread. So make sure you score your bread. And then it comes with this little cover, so you can safely store it, so you won't cut yourself when you put it away. So I'll have that ready. So my next step will be to lightly, I'll take it out of the small bowl, leave it on the parchment paper. I'll lightly flour the top. I will score the top. Then I'll pick it up, parchment paper and I'll set it down into my cold cast iron Dutch oven. And it's a cold oven for this recipe. It's a cold oven and a cold Dutch oven and oven to bake. So once I have it, my hour's up, I'm going to bring it over. Just lift that up with the parchment paper, set it down, give it a light flour, score it, set it in my cold Dutch oven, parchment paper and all. I am going to set mine on a cookie sheet, which I have one here lined. I'm just going to set mine on a cookie sheet, and this one's lined with aluminum foil, just to help keep it from burning. So I'll get that ready, so whenever I go to set my Dutch oven in the oven, I want to set it on a cookie sheet as well. And let me go ahead and get my 2 bread pans out. And I'm going to be making 2 loaves of the other bread that I've got right now in my bread machine. And it is now on its second rise. And it still has 54 minutes to rise. And I'm going to be making 2 loaves today. So that is what I'm going to be doing today. Just making and baking bread. And I have the recipe for the dough. That's my all-purpose dough. I have this recipe in the description box on the live stream I did making, I think it was either making and baking bread or the pan pizza, making the homemade pan pizza. I put this recipe in the description, so it'll be on one or the other one of those lives. I'm not really sure, I don't remember. But it is 1 cup of hot water. I put the 1 cup of water in the microwave for 30 seconds. 3 tablespoons of melted butter or oil, and I used vegetable oil today, 3 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons of sugar or honey, and today I used 2 tablespoons of sugar. 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I always start with 3 cups, depending on your humidity. You may need a little more flour. You may need the whole 3.5 cups, or you may not. So I put the 3 cups in, and then I look to see if it's still sticking to the sides and it's wet. I'll add a little more flour. Or if it looks a little too dry, I'll add just a little bit more water, just very small amounts at a time. Then 1 teaspoon of salt and 2 teaspoons of yeast of any kind. I set it in my dough, my bread machine on the dough setting, and it takes 1.5 hours. So whenever that beeps, I'll just take it out and form it into my loaf. And I place it in a well-greased cast iron bread pan. And I over-grease these because they're cast iron. And that's the bread loaf you're seeing today on my thumbnail, is the one that I currently am making the dough in the bread machine. And I've done that same dough on another live stream. So if you want to go back and look at that, I think it was the same one where I made the pizza, the homemade pan pizza. So I hope that that wasn't too bad today. Of course, I can't get it all done in one live stream. So, you know, it's not like the video. But if you want to see this whole sourdough bread, This recipe is from Robin on the Farm. She has the video, and she goes through the recipe, through mixing it up, and through actually baking the bread and presenting the bread. And I'm just trying this today. I'm excited to try the new young sourdough bread starter, so that's why I'm using her recipe. So if you want to see this all-in-one video, of course, credit goes to Robin on the Farm. Please go to Robin on the Farm, and you're looking for the video. It's easy sourdough bread recipe. Same day, no knead, no stretch, or fold sourdough bread using unfed starter. And then you can watch the video, and she has the printable recipe. So credit goes to Robin on the Farm, and we're trying her recipe with this new young bread starter. So anyway, that's all I have today. So I'm going to continue my baking of my bread today. And once this loaf gets done and I get it into my bread pan, I'm going to start my second loaf. And I'll probably just make my second loaf and then shape it and put it in the freezer, because that works out so great. Whenever I need another loaf, I can just go to the freezer. It's already made. I can just take a loaf out. I made it. I shaped it into whatever loaf size I want. Put it in a Ziploc freezer bag and put it in the freezer. And I can just go in that morning, take it out, let it thaw, and then shape it, drop it into my bread pan. Or if I want to make cinnamon rolls, or if I want to make dinner rolls, or if I want to make a pizza, I just let it thaw, and I can use that same dough ball for any of my recipes. So that is all I have today. So thank you for joining me today. I'll bring you back over to this one, and I'll let you see the dough. And it is now on its second rise. Let's see if I can get you close enough there. Whoops, I don't want to. I'm afraid of messing that up. So let me bring you up. There you go. It's on its second rise. And it has 49 minutes left. And then I'll bring you over to this one. And this one has 39 minutes left. And just look at that. Doesn't that look pretty? You can see it's airy, it's rising, it's starting to form its nice little ball. So I'm excited to try this. I think this is going to be absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead. I could have used a smaller bowl, maybe, but I didn't want to crunch it too much. So we'll see. Next time I may want to go just a little bit smaller. But that has 38 minutes yet, and then I can put that in a cold cast iron Dutch oven. I'll just lift it up, parchment paper, and that's after I set it on the counter, lightly flour it, score it, cut my marks in it, pick it up with the parchment paper, put it into the cold cast iron Dutch oven, cold oven. I'll turn the oven on to 450. I will bake it for 20 minutes with it covered at 450. Then I'll remove the lid. I'll turn it down to 425 and bake it for another 8 to 10 minutes with the lid off. And then remove it and set it on a cooling rack. And I want to make sure I remove it from the Dutch oven so the bottom doesn't burn. Because at that point the Dutch oven is going to be very, very hot. So anyway, that's all I have, and then I will come on tomorrow, excuse me, and I'll show you that loaf of bread and how it turned out. So I'm hoping everything turns out good. So there we are. I'm baking and making and doing bread today. Today's just going to be a day of making a lot of different doughs, at least getting my first loaf of my sourdough bread made with my new starter. And then I'm going to be baking 1 loaf of my all-purpose dough, and then I'll be making at least 1 or 2 more batches of dough, putting them in the freezer, and that way my freezer stock is restocked with my all-purpose homemade dough. So that's all I have today. So I will come back on tomorrow and show you the bread, how this turned out. I'll show you the loaf of bread, how this turned out. And then, of course, I'll go ahead and get the other loaves formed and froze. And it's just like going to the store and buying loaves of frozen bread. So that's all I have. That is it. So anyway, I want to thank you if you came to hang out with me this morning in the kitchen. And if you have any questions or comments, please, leave them in the comment section. But I always ask that you please be kind. And I'll catch you the next time. But I will come back tomorrow and I'll show you this loaf of the new sourdough bread starter. The first loaf that was baked. And then I'll show you the loaf that I have in the bread machine. And it's the same bread that you're seeing on my thumbnail in the cast iron bread pan. That's the same dough that I am now making over here in my bread machine on the dough cycle. So anyway, that's everything I have. I can't think of anything else. I know it's cold and it's snowing here in Ohio, so I thought, well, this will be a good morning to catch up on my bread making and baking. And so far we've got this loaf almost ready to go in. I started on this at 6:30 this morning. It had to set for 3 hours once I got it mixed up. And now it's on its last 35 minutes before I can put it into the cast iron Dutch oven and bake. And then this one is down to 44 minutes. And then I'll get it ready. I'll put it over into my well-greased cast iron bread pan. I'll allow it to rise till it rises about this much above my bread pan. I only want about 1 inch. And then once it rises, I'll put this one in the oven at 350. This one's going in at 450. It's going in a cold Dutch oven, cold oven. Just the bread that's been floured next on the parchment paper and scored with the score for the sourdough. 1 deep score and small scores to the side, or just make an X with small scores to allow that air to come through. And then once that's lightly floured and scored, it'll go parchment paper and all into the cold Dutch oven, into the oven, bake at 450 for 20 minutes, remove the top, turn my temperature to 425, and bake for 8 to 10 minutes to brown the top of the bread. So, that's what we're doing. Making and baking bread today. So guys, that's all I have for you. And fingers crossed, this is the first bread that we've made with the new young sourdough bread starter that we started this Monday. Today makes 3 weeks. We started on a Monday, and I took you through how to take care of your starter for the first week, up to putting it in the refrigerator. And then last week I was explaining during different lives. I would show you my starter, tell you how I was doing with it. I would basically take out 1/4 of discard every day, and then I would add 1/4 cup of flour, and then I'd take out 1/4 of a cup of discard, put it in a container. Then I would add 1/4 cup of flour, 1/4 cup of water, stir it all up to get those bubbles activated, set it on my counter, had a rubber band where it was at each day. I would allow it to rise. Once it doubled, I would put the wooden lid back on the jar, I'd have the cloth cap on my starter while it was doubling after I fed it to get it reactivated. Once it doubled, I'd take my cloth top off, put my wooden top back on, and set it in the refrigerator. And I've been repeating that daily. And I haven't been throwing away the sourdough discard. I've been putting it in a container. And I've made pancakes with that discard. I made waffles with the discard. And then I just fried some of it in a hot iron skillet with some grease, with some oil. And did like a fried bread with the discard. So I did not waste any of my discard. I was actually using it. But today's the first day. This is the first loaf, and I didn't think it was ready for the overnight fermenting and raising in the basket to make the sourdough. And I saw this recipe on Robin on the Farm on her YouTube channel, and I thought, let me try that today. So you're trying that with me. We're going to see tomorrow. Here after I bake it, I'll let you see tomorrow the bread and how it turned out. And I've got my fingers crossed because this is my new starter. It's very young. It's only 3 weeks old today. So, okay, I'm going to hop off of here. I've been on here a little over an hour. I hope that was informative. I hope you enjoyed it. And as usual, I got stuff all over me. And I enjoy my kitchen. I enjoy coming in and cooking, baking, and just sharing some recipes and trying new things. So hopefully this will encourage you to come in your kitchen, try new things. And I mean, when I got the bread machine, I wasn't sure what I'd think of it. I absolutely love it. I use it to bake bread. I use it for dough. And like today, I'm using it for dough. So I actually, once I tried it and used it a couple times, I absolutely love the bread machine. So come in your kitchen and try new things, experiment, and enjoy your kitchen. It's your kitchen. Have fun. Enjoy it. So, like I always say, you're never too old or too young to learn. I'm learning every day, every single day. So anyway, as always, bye everybody. Stay safe. Enjoy your kitchen. Come in and have fun. And I will see you tomorrow, and I'll let you see how this brand new sourdough starter bread had turned out. And I'll also, again, refer you to, and I'll credit to Robin on the Farm, her YouTube channel. And it was the printable recipe. And the video was the same day, no knead, no stretch or fold sourdough bread using unfed starter. So please, by all means, please go check out her channel, like and subscribe. She does an absolutely amazing job, and she has so many wonderful recipes. So if you want to see start to finish, hers is one whole video. I'm just doing live streams, so mine I can't do all in one time because I had to mix everything. I had to set it out for 3 hours with a covered towel. Then I had to take it out of, shape it to a ball, take it from that bowl, put it on parchment paper, put it to a smaller bowl. Now I have to leave it for an hour. And I've got about 28 minutes. And then I need to take it out of the bowl on the parchment paper, lightly flour it, score it, and set it down in a cold Dutch oven with the lid on in a cold oven and bake at 450 for 20 minutes. And then remove the lid and lower the heat to 425 for 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes to brown. And then remove it immediately from the cast iron Dutch oven. And I'm also going to be putting a cookie sheet lined in aluminum foil underneath of my Dutch oven just to make sure that it doesn't burn the bottom, because I'm not used this Dutch oven making sourdough bread before, so I'm not really sure how it's going to do. So just to be sure, I'm going to go ahead and put a cookie sheet underneath of my Dutch oven when I set it in the oven. So anyway, again, definitely go check out her channel, Robin on the Farm. I think you'll love her channel. She has some absolutely wonderful videos. She does the printable recipes. So please, by all means, go check her out. And again, credit goes to Robin on the Farm for this recipe for the sourdough bread. same day sourdough bread. So anyway, bye-bye everyone. Have an absolutely wonderful Monday, and I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll let you see how this turned out. So fingers crossed. It's our first loaf. Let's hope it does really good with the new sourdough starter. It's a new starter. It's a baby. It's young. But we're going to give it a try and see how it does with this loaf of bread. So, till tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone. Enjoy your day. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.